Hello, everybody. It's Evan Grant with your Sports Day Insider today. Kevin Sherrington is out. We'll just say he has an illness and not disclose his general location. But Kevin, as usual, slacking off. But in Kevin's absence, we are joined by Tim Cowlishaw. Tim, our voice, our beacon, one of our two great columnists at the Dallas Morning News, both of whom finished in the top 10 in the Associated Press Sports Editors Columnist Writing Award.
How about that? Have they run out of columnists? 12 entered the contest.
But you did great, Tim. You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today. And so what we're going to do with you is we're going to go around the horn because you have lots of hot sports opinions.
Hot around the horn. I remember that show. I think I can do that.
Oh, that wasn't an intentional pun on my part.
Well, yeah, you're trying to just be a baseball guy and say around the horn. It means something else to me now, but I know get it. I get it.
It means a whole lot more to you, Tim. I know.
Well, it did for a while. It doesn't now. It did on a weekly basis for 22 years, but not so much.
All right. Well, but you've got this. This fills that hole, hopefully, for you today.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
All right, so we're going to get into the Mavs and the hiring of Masai Ujiri, and you will be at that press conference today in just a moment. But let's start with what you just wrote about and what you were hot on pursuit of for the last couple of weeks, and that was the Stars. What is your general takeaway on this ending to this season based on the way they played most of the year?
General takeaway, obviously a big disappointment for Stars fans. You get into trouble when you've gone to the conference finals 3 years in a row. There obviously is going to be nothing satisfactory but a trip to the Cup Final. I think even a fourth loss in the Western Conference Finals, as fun as it would have been for fans to see them beat Minnesota and Colorado, then I guess they would have had to lose to the Ducks or Vegas. It would have felt like you're just stuck on this. You're hitting the wall. You're really close. But to go out in the first round, even against a good team, Minnesota, hockey does the playoffs different from the NBA. They don't do 1 through 8. They used to. And as a result, 2 played 3 in the West in the first round. So that's a Gary Bettman thing. It doesn't bother me as much as it does a lot of fans. You're going to have to beat them sometime. You didn't win your division. Just go play. But, I think as much as that angers Stars fans watching that series, they knew Minnesota was a better team. It wasn't even close. Dallas scored on power plays, I think 10 power play goals at the end, which is insane. And then 4 goals at even strength for 6 games. I mean, you just cannot play that way. So it's a big disappointment. They missed Rupe Hintz, a first-line center, but everybody misses a player or two here and there. Quinn Hughes was the best player. Mikko Rantanen was not great. Wyatt Johnson wasn't great. A lot of guys weren't great. It's a setback. The team, what I wrote about today, the Cowboys' 30-year drought gets talked about constantly. The Cowboys get a lot of criticism, as they should, for being the team that hasn't gone to the NFC Championship game the longest. The Stars don't have that in the way, but it's now 27 years since that Stanley Cup parade in the streets of Dallas. And sometimes they talk like a team that's accomplished a lot, and they've been good a lot, and they get close a lot, but they don't have that final piece, and they've only been to the finals once this century. So they're behind the Rangers in that front, they're behind the Mavericks in that front. And that needs to be mentioned because we think of the Stars as really good, and they have been of late, but they're not getting the job done. And this year they took a big step in the wrong direction.
So, but you had talked to me before all this took place, and I think your statement on this was that you felt like the Stars were either going to lose in the first round or go to the Cup Finals. It was one or the other. So it was definitely, from your perspective, a very evenly matched series going in.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota was really good. They traded for Quinn Hughes, a great defenseman. The Team USA best defenseman in the Olympics, and they already had a good team in front. They rolled the dice and played a rookie goaltender who was their backup this year, who played well, and they went with him in game one. And I thought maybe they're just going to go back and forth, but he played the whole series and he played a little better than Ottinger did. So they were really good. If they, the winner of this series, now Minnesota lost the first game to Colorado. I still think that'll be a good series. I think the winner of that series has a great chance to win the Stanley Cup, certainly to get to the Cup final. But yeah, I thought these would be the two toughest teams they'd have to play, Minnesota and Colorado, but they didn't get past the first one.
All right, so on the drought, Tim.
Yeah.
I get your point, but is it fair? There's nothing that's fair to compare to the Cowboys because the Cowboys haven't even been to their conference championship.
Right.
The
No,
Stars
and I
have
mean,
been
yeah,
back
I
there.
said there's a lot of reasons we talk about the Cowboy drought more, and that's they can't get past the second round of the playoffs, and they don't get that far very often.
So as you get to this point now, right? This is an inflection point for this team because I think
Yeah.
everything for me comes back to Rangers comps, and I look at what this team did after 2012 because it had been to back-to-back playoffs and it had disappointment, or back-to-back World Series, and it had the disappointment, and there is this step back that you take, and you do have to reconsider a lot of things. So what is your biggest thing the Stars have to address moving forward into this offseason?
Well, weirdly, they're going to try hard to stand pat, which isn't great, but Jason Robertson has now played his way into and hockey's don't want to bog down with a bunch of salary cap talk because I don't understand a bunch of salary cap talk, but hockey's salary cap is harder than the NBA's. And so if Jason Robertson has played his way into a $10 million plus per year deal, and I think the Stars have $11 million to spend. So they've got to trade somebody somewhere. They've got to be creative. The second biggest reason, you mentioned the one, the Cowboys not going anywhere, and maybe this is the biggest reason you wouldn't compare the two, is because the Stars have had the GM of the year 3 years in a row. I don't think the Cowboys have won that lately. I'll have to look that up, but I'll have to see if the Cowboys have ever won 3 GM of the year awards in a row.
This would be the point of the broadcast where Kevin would normally start praising Howie Roseman nonstop, but we'll just
Yes.
go past that point.
Yes. We'll skip Howie today, but say the Cowboys don't have Howie, and the Stars have their Howie and Jim Nill. But yeah, it's just, this team hasn't been good enough, and it's hard to conceive of them making better. He won that award because he went all in at the deadline, and last year, and this is a really interesting one to watch because he went and got Mikko Rantanen, a truly great player. You have back-to-back hat tricks in Game 7 against Colorado and Game 1 against Winnipeg. You can't find a hockey player who played better in the playoffs than that little stretch he had. But he traded Logan Stankoven, a good young forward, and right now Carolina is 6-0 in the playoffs, and Logan Stankoven might be tracking to win the Conn Smythe Award. So this goes beyond trading Cole Reagans for Aroldis Chapman. If you've traded by accident and I don't know if he's going to win the Conn Smythe, but he's playing great and he's scored 5 or 6 goals, and he's young, obviously much younger than Rantanen and much less expensive than Rantanen. So some of these moves they've made were to win now, and that's the problem. But yeah, they're still good going forward. But they've traded young players. They've traded a ton of first round picks. Nobody pays attention to that in hockey, outside the hockey world. And they've traded first round picks like the Mavericks have traded first round picks. So they don't have the stockpile of young players coming. So they're hard pressed to get back to this level, I think, next year and to finish second in the West. I think that would be very hard, and that'll be a real challenge this offseason.
Well, at some point in time, you realize that your window of opportunity
Yeah.
has kind of started to close. Should this be a signal to them to start to rebuild or no?
No, because here's the deal. And I mentioned this. Mikko Rantanen's 29, Miro Heiskanen's 26, Wyatt Johnson's 23, Robertson's 26. If you can keep him, Ottinger's whatever he is, 27 or 8. He's well below 30. They have some older forwards, and you kind of move those guys around. Matt Duchene's, those kind of guys. I don't want to say they come and go because Matt Duchene's a really good player, but their core is still young. But they don't have the pieces to put around them. They were kind of short this year, and even when Hintz was playing, so they were playing a couple guys in the top lines that hadn't really earned that spot. So they're gonna have to, like I said, he's gonna have to be really creative. Either trade somebody, trade Robertson, which then you've got to replace 45 goals. Uh, they've got to make some interesting moves this offseason, but they still have so many good young players that the window isn't closed. But you do wonder, they've had four good shots at it now and haven't gotten to the finals. Is something missing? And that's what they're kind of scrambling to try to solve.
All right, well, let's move on to something then that's a little bit potentially easier to show improvement on,
Okay.
and that would be the Mavericks.
They
Nothing,
won rookie
nowhere
of the
to go but
year. What
up
do you want
there.
from them? This team wins rookie of the year like nobody's business. It's funny when I saw that Cooper Flag was the third rookie of the year, and I was thinking, well, Luka and Dirk, but Dirk didn't win it. It was Luka and Jason Kidd. Dirk wasn't that great as a rookie, but man, they've had some good rookies through the years. They don't all stay. They get rid of them at different times. Jalen Brunson scored about 40 last night, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of sore at the Knicks after they actually embarrassed the Hawks in Game 5 of that
Oh,
series.
love Quinn Snyder. Love Quinn Snyder.
The Hawks hawked, as I like to say. But listen, so as the Mavericks get ready to introduce Masai Ujiri
Yeah.
as the president and the man who will run basketball operations, is this the home run hire that they need in the front office?
Well, I'm thinking about what I might write today, but this is what I wanted to pose to you here. It is a classic home run hire in that you went out and got a guy who has done this job and won a championship in Toronto, of all places. But beyond that championship, that was really based on trading for Kawhi to put him on a good team for 1 year. He built a good team. They drafted some big time players. They got some good players. He made Toronto relevant, and that's what Dallas needs. But I mean, we've all seen this. You can make a small hire and hire the guy who's been an assistant that nobody heard of and get Jim Nill the way the Stars did, or you can hit a home run and you can hire John Hart and you get him with
I
the
knew you were
Rangers,
going there with this.
and it was kind of just set up for me, and I knew it was perfect for you. And well, man, the Rangers just got John Hart. They haven't had a GM like this. We all like Doug Melvin. Doug Melvin did a very good job, but people didn't know Doug Melvin before he got here, and they just got John Hart, who's been a guy we've been reading about and typing his name forever. He's built teams, and not to say everything went wrong in the John Hart era, but it certainly didn't deliver what they hoped. So yeah, I think Masai Ujiri should do better, should get better results than John Hart, but you never really know on these things. And the NBA in particular is just so player driven. You got to nail a couple of draft picks, and they got to whatever pick they get in the lottery this Sunday. There's room for it to be a good player in this draft, and they have to nail that. And Masai was very good at getting players not only in the lottery but other players in his time in Toronto.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to rebuild an NBA team because one player can make so much of a difference, your evaluation skills on the draft are so important. And that is, I think that's key to this job. And they need to nail this draft, obviously. Um, But what else can this team do to get better over the
Here's
next
the other thing. There's another new key, I believe. Another thing I was going to write about. I think there's a new key in that if they are going to change the rules regarding tanking and change the lottery and make it hard to just, yeah, we can get another high pick. Now we know the Mavericks are in a position they can't get a high pick for a couple of years without going and getting somebody else's. But regardless, you have to figure out who are the players in this league who aren't playing, who are barely playing, and who might be able to do more. Like Minnesota just got, and I'll say his name wrongly, Ayud Desunmo, who nobody knew, and then all of a sudden Anthony Edwards is hurt and he scores 40 points in an NBA playoff game. Then he got hurt and hasn't done anything since then. But you've got to go out and make moves that don't look big at the time. And Masai brought in a couple players in Toronto, sort of like that. But yeah, I think there's more to just making sure you have. He's obviously not the only scout, but whatever he sees in players or whatever he wants, make sure the organization sees that throughout and they can find those guys, because it's going to take more than the draft pick this year. You're going to have to rebuild the roster, and NBA teams make a lot of moves. These guys, uh, it's not unusual to see 9 or 10 new guys out of 15 each year on a lot of rosters, and that's what they're going to have to do.
But he's nailed a key element of this whole thing, and that is be the guy after Nico Harrison.
Yes, that is a tremendous job. I mean, you cannot you cannot be a disaster if you follow Nico. And,
You're
and we all think of the Luca trade, which is a big number one, but Nico did so many things wrong, and even to the point of they have finally gotten rid of some of the medical people that he brought in after he ran off Casey Smith, and Mavericks thought they had the best trainers and best medical people. And I heard after the Wizards trade stuff about they don't well, and they had a thing with the Lakers that, according to the Lakers, they did the MRI on the wrong place on Austin Reeves, and he had to have 2 MRIs when he came here right before the playoffs. So yeah, that's a great slot to be in. It's the one you want.
Yeah, and it will give him a nice honeymoon period as well,
Yeah,
because everything will be it's not Nico.
right.
So,
And fans already hate the new owners, so they won't get credit for anything. It'll all be Masai if things go well, and if the team still stinks, they'll still look at Patrick Dumont as the problem over there sitting courtside.
yeah, it's a perfect situation
Perfect.
for
Can't beat
there.
that.
Um, we haven't gotten your thoughts on the Cowboys draft. I know Kevin loves the NFL draft. I'm, not as excited about it as he is, but I thought that they did a good job of stacking defensive players. I thought they got the one of the guys in the first round that really qualified as potential help for them. You agree or disagree that this was a good draft for the Cowboys?
I agree because of one player, Caleb Downs, and I think when people look at this draft in 5 years, it'll be the Caleb Downs draft. Some of the other guys might be starters. They might be fringe Pro Bowl guys that might be asking a lot. But Caleb Downs, when you have a guy, you get a guy at 11, and a lot of people think he could have gone 1, 2, or 3 if people just valued safeties more. He played safety for Nick Saban, and then he played safety for Ohio State, and it's two very different styles, and apparently mastered them both and was the team leader without question. That is something, when you watch this team play last year, among the many problems, the idea that is there anybody who even resembles a leader on this defense? A Darren Woodson type from not the Super Bowl Darren Woodson, but after the Cowboys had come down from that, when he was still helping that defense be good or as good as it could be for years. And that's what Caleb Downs, I think, can be. The rest of the picks, we'll see. I don't know whether I don't know if you were being facetious about Kevin. Maybe he does love the draft. I think the draft is maybe a little overblown, perhaps.
I think there's.
Uh,
I just think that the draft gets too much. We get way too much analysis on the draft. And look, at the end of the day, there were five guys that I thought the Cowboys needed to get one of in the
yeah,
first round, and they managed to do that. Now,
right.
I think this draft is a solid draft. I think it comes down to, is Malachi Lawrence or one of the other edge guys that they get a real surprise. If those guys come out to be real above average edge rushers, if any of them do, then this is a home run draft. If not,
Yeah,
they got the guy that they fixed something that they desperately needed to fix.
right. And they still might have more things to fix with edge rusher, as you mentioned, if these other guys don't step up, or linebacker, or even cornerback. So we'll see. But yeah, I thought it was very good. Um, yeah, day three analysis of the draft. That's fun to watch. With all these, I love this guy. The 194th pick. Oh, yeah, he's great. That's why he's going in the fifth round.
There you go. Before we let you get out of here, Shawn McFarland's going to join us to talk the Rangers in just a minute, but I want to get your take.
Do
This team is 16-18 after
Yes, they
34
are.
games. They are over their last 304 games.
Hmm.
They are 152 and
Yeah,
152.
that is
Um,
solid.
but what's your? Do you feel like at 16-18 with this schedule that they've had, are you optimistically thinking or are you pessimistically thinking right now?
I don't know if I can be optimistic. Uh, there's a couple things, and I won't take too long. You need to get somebody who's actually knows what he's talking about in here, and Sean should be in here. But um, there are things to be optimistic about. There was one little thing I hated the other day, and I hate this. I'll just go ahead and come out of the closet on my fantasy American League rotisserie.
I
I played in a league forever, and there are certain managers that do this, and especially with young pitchers. And I think Jack Leiter's still a young pitcher. A guy has 6 shutout innings, and his box score the next day is 6 2/3 with 5 earned runs. I mean, you just can't do that to a guy. You just can't kill a guy like that by, oh, we're doing fine with him. And I know most people argue the opposite. Everybody pulls guys out too quickly, but if you're going to have an 8-man bullpen, and you got guys and you got 6 shutout innings, I don't know, that drives me nuts when I see that. But uh, it's got to
Never
be the
on
same.
this podcast. Tim hates Skip Schumacher.
No, no, I don't want to start that. I don't want to be Kevin on that front either. Skip and I got along fine in Surprise, and the one game I've been to, we talked around the horn, which I know Evan was excited about in the dugout.
Yep.
So I didn't bring it up. Um, no, I like Skip. I'm just saying I hate that one little thing. I did want to mention our dueling Wyatt Langford columns. I think I'm winning on that front, on that front right now.
You may
How's
have
this?
the edge on that one right now, Tim.
But it's a long season. He's going to come back. He's going to be fine. I mean, I don't have an explanation for Corey Seager. You guys can discuss that. The offense has to be better than it is, but I know it feels like you've been saying that for 3 years. So, the Yankees are the only team really doing anything. The Mariners aren't doing anything yet. Uh, Watch out when Kate Anderson comes, though. But let me just, yeah, I can't say optimistic, but I don't think they're done. They got to get the offense going. They got to get something to ignite it. Nimmo had the great start, then he's kind of been battling to stay in the lineup. I just think they got to have a better offense than this, and they'll have a better run uh, when they when the schedule's a little easier.
Yeah, I think, look, just that, and Sean and I will talk about this more, but I think at 16-18, my feeling is there may be a one-run loss to the A's where they had some late chances away from being exactly where I thought they'd be at this very moment as they head into this Yankees series. Um, the important thing that they need to do is they've got another week left in this rough stretch with 3 games against the Yankees and 3 games against the Cubs at home. they've got to keep it together. They can't afford
Yeah.
a long losing streak right now.
Right. Right.
That would do away with all of that. But I think the general consensus, and Sean and I will break this down more, is that they're about where they should be right now. It was all about surviving this stretch.
Okay.
Tim, last things before we let you go.
Yes, sir.
We are, Sean's a young buck. He's a young
He
kid.
is. He's just a kid. He's just a pup.
And you and I we're in the aging sports writer division. And everybody knows that as aged sports writers, you have to have seen Bruce Springsteen multiple times.
Many
Um,
times.
you've seen him many times. I know you've become more of a Swiftie now than a Springsteen
And a
guy.
Swiftie. There they are, right there.
But
Check them out.
well, it would be great if this was on video. But we saw Springsteen in Austin last week. I think that was my 4th time seeing him.
Oh, you went to the Moody Center.
Yeah, it was a great show. But here's my question, Tim. What is your favorite, forget album, okay? And let's just say, if you're going to make a movie about Springsteen, it didn't need to be about the Nebraska album.
Let's make a movie about a depressing album. And let's have Jeremy Irons, whatever his name is, play the same character he plays on The Bear. This should work.
Forget about all of that. What is your if you go to a Springsteen concert, what is the one song you absolutely have to hear?
Well, I am aging out, as you say. I want to hear Rosalita, and he's not playing it these days, but he has played it different tours. But I want to hear something from the E Street Shuffle, and I don't know if I know he didn't play Kitty's Back or anything like that. So he may be completely ignoring the second album now, which I would hate. He's obviously going to play Born to Run and probably 10th Avenue Freeze Out or something from Born to Run. But I like to hear something from the second album. It was the first thing that caught my eye and ear in the summer of '74 that Sean remembers so well, and you as well. Because I saw him in 1975 at the Bottom Line, so I saw him 50 years ago. But I must have been 3 years old. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Sitting in the front row. No. Yeah. No, it's not so much the particular song. I want to hear something from East Street Shuffle. I looked at the set list that he had in Austin because my college roommate, still there, he went, and so I was seeing what he played, and the set list is always going to be good. He's not going to play a bad set list, but I don't remember if he played anything from the first 2 albums.
Don't well,
I don't think he did.
So.
I don't think he did.
When I go, I guess this was my 4th time. And when I go, the one song that I just absolutely rock out to is always going to be Badlands, and Badlands is
Okay.
always
Yeah.
towards the end of the show and really
Yeah.
does a great job.
Yeah.
I've really taken a liking to The Rising over the last couple of years just because of the messaging. But the one song I have to hear, and it's kind of the same way. Now, I'm a little bit younger than you.
You
Just a
are.
little bit, Tim.
More than a little, actually.
The first Springsteen song I was ever introduced to was Cadillac Ranch.
Okay.
And being now a Texan for the last 30 years, having made the pilgrimage, I have to hear Cadillac Ranch. And on both of the last 2 occasions that I've seen him, he has not played Cadillac Ranch. Didn't play it in Dallas 2 years ago because Little Steven was out with COVID and didn't play it in this Austin set and is not playing it on this tour. But I can't imagine seeing Bruce Springsteen in Texas and not seeing Cadillac Ranch.
Yeah, that's too bad. He didn't play that there, since that was his only Texas appearance, I believe. So
Yeah.
it would have been nice. He's usually pretty conscious of those things, popping a little local color. But I'm glad you got to see him again, and he's up to 4 on your list. That's good. Sean, you can discuss with Sean when he pops in here. While he's young, he's working hard to be old. He's buying vinyl albums from 20 and 30 years ago from a Rolling Stone list.
Sean explains it to me.
That's gotten him into some Radiohead, so that I'm very happy for him on that front.
And then last thing, Tim,
Yes.
you are often in New York. I am here in New York, and it's always a great dilemma when you get to New York.
Yeah.
What ethnic food are you going to try first? Yesterday, I did a double dive into my favorite Middle Eastern food here at Shuka, and then went for Chinese food in Chinatown.
Okay.
What's the first thing you have to eat when you get to New York?
I'm not as adventuresome as you are, and my daughter lives on the Upper West Side, so we have a couple. There's an Italian place up there we like to go, but there's Getting Chinese. I don't even know the name of it. It's up near her place, and then Joe's Pizza, which I didn't discover till about through. I discovered that through her. So she moved there 5, 6 years ago. So like in 2020. So try to get a slice of Joe's Pizza at some point, and then a couple Italian and uh, Chinese places. I tend to go to PJ Clark's every time I'm there. That's not really ethnic food, but you know where that is,
Yes.
and the great burgers and good food of that ilk right there on 55th and Third. So yeah, that you can't go wrong. Too many good choices in that city.
Today is deli day as I head out to Yankee
Are
Stadium.
you going to see any baseball while you're there? You're just eating. You're eating your way through New York.
I will see some baseball on
God, I'd like to
site.
see a byline in the paper.
I'm not sure if I'll see it on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, but I will see
Oh,
baseball on
does it
Tuesday.
rain?
We've got
Is
some
it?
rain in the
Oh,
forecast.
jeez.
But
That's
Tim,
easy.
this was great.
Yes.
You know what? You're welcome on the show anytime, Tim.
Yeah. Well, let me know.
Well, Tim was great. Lots of opinions, lots of memories. Always good to have Tim on, but now it's time to get younger, more hip, and definitely more Ranger centric with Shawn McFarland. Shawn, thanks for hopping on today.
Thanks for having me. And I do want to go on the record. I have seen Bruce Springsteen live. Not 4 times, but I've checked it off the box. So I feel like I have at least cleared that initiation into sports writing. So
When did you see Bruce Springsteen?
this probably would have been 2010, 2011. I think I was in the 8th grade, maybe a freshman in high school.
You had no idea what you were watching at that point in time.
You're
Yeah,
right. We were very high up
older.
in Gillette Stadium seats. I couldn't see anything.
There
But
you
the
go.
music was fantastic.
The music is great. It is just an all time rock and roll show. And I miss rock and roll. Uh, so Shawn, the Rangers are 16 and 18. Let's get into some Ranger talk here. The Rangers are 16 and 18 as we record this. You just watched them win one of three in Detroit. Um, as I mentioned with Tim, they are 152 and 152 over their last 304, which has no bearing on Skip Schumacher whatsoever. But I do think it is part of why the fandom is, I don't want to say restless, but it's hard to be excited when your team is basically a 500 team for 2 full years and going on 2 full seasons worth of games. But the bottom line, I think, as I said to Tim, I think that this team at 16 and 18 at this point in time is right where I expected them to be. Uh, you think that they've missed out on any opportunities? Do you think that they should be significantly better or worse?
I don't think significantly one way or another. I think there are moments the one I think back on is like that first game in LA. Like they could have stolen that first game in LA. The one where Max Muncy ends up hitting 3 home runs, but like that was kind of one of those games where like they could have stolen that one, maybe taken that series and felt a whole lot better. I also don't think that makes a massive difference on the 16 and 18 record one way or another. Um, I think for all the things that have, I don't want to say gone wrong, but not gone perfectly, like the offense, maybe the rotation taking a step back, the bullpen being, I would say, drastically better than I expected it to be, given the host of names they have back there, I think has probably saved them as much as the offense being, or excuse me, the rotation being average has hurt them. I think that has kind of been a wash through the first month. The offense is the offense, and we can talk about that. But I think this is, in my head, I think they've played like a 500 club, and I think, look, it's gone, they're 2 games under. It's the margin of error is small, but like, I think they're right around where they're supposed to be through these first 36 games, whatever it's been.
Yeah, I agree that they're right where they should be. They've got 6 more games as we record this. on this 40-game stretch, this first quarter of the season, that was really, really tough. They are at a -1 in run differential, so they are basically a 500 team. And I still go back. I think it was the 2-1 loss to uh, the A's in that series deciding game at Globe Life Field that for me is the quote unquote difference between them being exactly where I expected them to be and them being a game back of that. That's nothing that can't be overcome. Um, let's talk a little bit about the bullpen. I think you and I are both on the same page here. Skip Schumacher has not said Jacob Latz is my closer, but Jacob Latz is his closer. Um, agree or disagree on that?
I agree, and I asked him in Detroit, as I'm sure you did, the series prior in Oakland. He had said after um, the first game Friday, oh, you really ideally you want to have that guy in the ninth inning that you can go to. So I asked him the next day, like, do you have that guy? And he gave a long-winded answer about you know if you're looking at the staff now and if you want to pick the highest leverage guy, it's probably Jacob Latz. And I think that's as far as he'll go right now, is to say Jacob Latz is the closer. And I think, it is what I wrote this weekend and what Skip has said, and I know what you've written too, is effectively like, if it lines up and everyone's available, he'll be closing the ninth inning. Now, if there's a pocket of lefties in the eighth that might decide the game too, maybe he gets that and Junis gets the ninth. I think they ultimately are still going to find the best lanes for these guys. And I think if you talk to Skip, I think when he looks at the bullpen and why it's been so successful this year, it's because they're finding the right lanes for guys. And I think that applies to everyone from Peyton Gray and Gavin Collier to Jacob Latz and Jacob Junis, right? So um, I think if someone had to be the closer right now, it's Jacob Latz. I just don't think they want to put that title on him because, look, maybe you need him in the seventh or eighth. Maybe you need him for 2 innings because he's still your best option to do that right now. And they want to maintain that flexibility, I guess, is the best way to look at it.
I think the only reasons that Jacob would not close games going forward will be situations when, as you said, if there's a set of tough lefties in the eighth inning, and he has a long eighth inning against them, he won't get the ninth.
Yeah.
But if he has a quick inning, he'll get the ninth. I think if he's pitched on back-to-back days, they're not going to go to him on a third day for the ninth inning. I think if they do have lefties in the eighth and they've got a 3-run lead, and he gets through the eighth quickly, maybe the Rangers go to Junis in the ninth, just because they want to save Latz to have him the next day. But for all intents and purposes, I think the lane situation is basically been, I don't want to say obliterated, but I think been rendered kind of immaterial here. In the ninth inning last week against the Yankees, he faced Aaron Judge. And if you're talking about lanes and you want a righty on righty situation, there's no more fearsome right-handed hitter in the game than Aaron Judge. And he faced Aaron Judge, had no problem with him. And so for me, that was kind of the seal of approval. This is the guy. And it was after that game that Skip started talking, closer with some caveats, with some qualifiers. So I think that Jacob has done a remarkable job. I actually voted for him for American League reliever of the month, factoring in the fact that he'd also started a game for Jacob DeGrom, had converted 3 saves, and had pitched high leverage with a expected ERA, a league best expected ERA of 1.51. So, and he really should have had a fourth. He should have had another win too, but that was a scorer's decision in Sacramento. Um, you mentioned both Peyton Gray and Gavin Collier, and those have been huge surprises on the bullpen front. And look, for me, the single biggest remarkable performance in the first 5 weeks, you could make a case for Josh Young for sure. You could make a case that Brandon Nimmo has been a revelation, but nobody expected this bullpen to lead to lead Major League Baseball in ERA at this point. I know bullpen ERA can be deceiving a little bit because of inherited runners, but they've done a great job. And the fact that without a ton of minor league depth, they've gotten two guys from the minor leagues to really contribute and, to your point, move up in the hierarchy is remarkable. And what do you think about their ability to sustain this?
I think that's what always scares me the most. Sustaining this, right? Because Gray and Collier have both been fantastic. And look at the first month. Like, I don't know where they would be without them, right? You lose Chris Martin, who was struggling before. You lose Robert Garcia, who was struggling before. Those were your two highest leverage guys coming into the season. As you know, them and Latz probably coming into the season, and they're down 2 weeks into the season. So I don't know where they would be without Gray and Collier. But they are rookies. Collier does not have a ton of experience above AA. Neither does Gray, for that matter, right? Eventually, there will be a bad outing or two. There will be a road bump. It's all about how they respond to that. But you look, even last year, I thought, because the bullpen had good numbers outside of the closer spot last year, had good numbers, and I thought, well, at some point, like, this is all going to fall apart, and the bullpen's going to be a mess and be a problem. And it really wasn't. That's a credit to the guys they had last year, and I think the coaching staff too for managing that. So if you ask me, I still think they need to go out and get a proven high leverage guy at or before the deadline to supplement the fact that there may be some regression at some point from this rather unproven group. But I also think that the hope, right, is that the rotation is going to get better. They're going to pitch deeper into games. The offense, ideally, at some point, can take some pressure off of the bullpen. And I think that can help alleviate what regression might come. Now, that has to happen. But I think that is something you can look at as a hope to help alleviate any setbacks that do come in the bullpen if this can't be maintained.
So what's your biggest concern going forward?
Still the offense, you know. I think coming into the year it was the bullpen, and I hate to like change my mind a month in, but like I just watched those 3 games in Detroit, and it just felt like a lot of last year, right? The whole last 2 weeks have been, right? It's the amount that they strike out with runners in scoring position is unbelievable right now. And I think if you look at this Detroit series, it's kind of like a Rangers fan's worst nightmare, right? Is that the rotation takes a step back from last season, the defense does too, and the offense doesn't step up. And that's kind of what the Detroit series looked like, where, you know, you weren't getting 7 innings of 2-run ball from your 3 youngest starters. The defense was a mess on Sunday, and the offense, you know, wasn't there to pick up some of the slack. To me, that was like the worst case scenario coming into the season. I know it's just a 3-game series. I know we've talked about how tough these first 40 games are, but if you look at just that little sample size, you know, it can always be pinned back to the offense.
Well, and we're going to get into a little bit more on the offense in just a second, but my biggest concern right now is, listen, my take on the offense is this team's either going to sink or swim with the offense. And there's not much that can be done to fix this offense one way or another. So guys are either going to perform or they're not. Josh Young's performance has been, again, I guess my word of the day is remarkable where the Rangers are concerned, but Josh Young's performance has been a significant turnaround for me. The walks to strikeouts, that's the thing that suggests to me that this is sustainable. My biggest concern right now is this: if you do commit to Latz as your 9th inning guy and basically turn him into a 1-inning guy, and now you're a month into the season and he's basically pitched mostly 1-inning stints since that first start, you've eliminated him as a starting option. There is no starting depth whatsoever to speak of. Your top minor league starter was going to be Jose Corniel. He has not pitched. You thought Cody Bradford was going to be back the first week of May. He's at least 6 weeks away from returning, best case scenario. Jordan Montgomery is making good progress. Such good progress that I think the Rangers don't want to rush it at all, because he was tracking to be ready at the end of June instead of being ready mid-July, which is what they originally had. So he's not on the horizon. If you get an injury in this rotation, and we know how finicky health is when it comes to starting rotations, I don't know where this team goes. And again, they have Austin Gomber, who's got some major league starting experience, and they've got Cal Quantrill in the big leagues. But I don't know what happens if you lose any of these starters, even for a handful of starts. So that's my biggest concern right now. That's just playing out worst case scenarios. But let's finish this off real quick on the offense. I'm going to give you this, okay? Pick a disappointment, Sean. Pick your number one disappointment. I'm going to give you 5 options. That's how bad the offense has been going.
Wow, 5 to... All right, let's hear him.
For you, what's your biggest disappointment? Seager, Smith, Langford, Carter, Berger.
It's tough. I would have to go with Seager, and it's so tough to pick against him, because I think we've all seen the fact that, look, tomorrow he could start a really good stretch of baseball and make everyone look silly for questioning what was going on these last few months. But I pointed this out during the Detroit series. It's not as much that it's not specifically just that he's not had a fantastic offensive start. It's the fact that the guys directly around him, Brandon Nimmo and Josh Young, have, right? There are multiple times in the Detroit series where Nimmo gets on and Seager strikes out, or Seager strikes out, and then Josh Young gets a hit behind him. And that's a spot where in years past, like, if you have your leadoff hitter and your 3 or 4 hitter working, you feel great because you have Corey Seager in the middle of them, and he's either going to get on for them or drive them in. So that's what concerns me from the first month, is like, you've had this great stretch from him, but you had this fantastic stretch from Josh Young, and the guy in the middle who's supposed to kind of, as far as like bridge those two pieces, just hasn't been there. Now on the other side of that, like, this could all look silly in a month when he has an 850 OPS because he goes on a tear in May. But he's been number one. I guess Langford would be 2, but the injury it's I don't know how you count that, and then probably Berger 3. Carter, I look at Carter. He hasn't been fantastic, but he's been such an impact on the defensive end that, look, he's hitting 170 and he's still like a plus WAR player because he's been so impactful defensively, and that has to count for something.
Yeah, I think that Carter's defense mitigates some of it, but again, he is hitting 170, and for a calendar year, almost a calendar year, for 11 months now, he's in an 0 for 32 against lefties, doing nothing to remove the idea that he's a platoon player. For me, the biggest disappointment is a real toss-up between Wyatt Langford and Jake Berger. Wyatt is supposed to be a franchise player. This offense is not going to go with any real certainty until Wyatt gets on the field and gets to playing. And I don't think that this latest injury is going to be just another week. I think he's going to miss more time than that. How much, I'm not sure. And that's 3 straight years he's had an early season injury where he's missed I'm not going to say a significant amount of time, but it's been more than a week. Let's put it that way. For me, this year, and the offense was going to be determined by the performances or the lack thereof of Jake Berger and Josh Young. Those were 2 supplemental players, complementary players who really needed to take a step up. Josh has. Jake has a career 5-to-1 strikeout to walk rate, and that is not sustainable for a long time big league career. I went back and did some research on this. I think the one guy who had a legitimate big league career with that kind of strikeout to walk rate is Javier Baez. And Baez is there because he plays two premier defensive positions. Um, and so I do think that, you know, Jake was on the clock. Josh was on the clock coming into the season. I think Josh has bought himself some time. I think Jake has been a major disappointment in the middle of that lineup. This was, you know, everything was set up for him to really thrive with, you know, a manager that he really jived with, and Skip Schumacher coming in. He did a lot of stuff this offseason supposedly to get himself in more agile. You know, he had a year to kind of catch his breath after really having a lot on his plate last year. But the fact that he's, you know, what shows up is this: when Jake Berger isn't on an absolute heater, it basically becomes a zero because he's not walking, he's not picking up some soft hits. It's just an absolute zero. I don't know what he is right now. He's like 0 for 18, 0 for 20 as we go into this Yankee series. And, you know, he's sitting in the middle of the Rangers lineup, and it's just it's just a big hole, and the Rangers don't have anybody to fill it with right now. If they ever get healthy, you know, it won't surprise me if the Rangers start to give Ezekiel Duran some time at first base, you know, but I don't know that they can split Ezekiel Duran in two and play him at first base and at second base. But, you know, Zeke is creating opportunities for himself to play all over the field. But that's my biggest single concern right now, is the fact that the guy who was supposed to really step into the role as a franchise player, Wyatt Langford, has been hurt and ineffective when he was on the field, and that the guy who really needed to show some kind of rebound has not, and has shown basically what his career track record is: enormous power, but doesn't have other ways to reach base. So, look, that's going to do it. I don't know that I've got Shawn. I don't ever let you go to New York because you take Boston, which is my second favorite city in the major leagues, and since it's your home, I feel I can't take that away from you. Home is important. Blah
That's so
blah
generous.
blah. But I don't know if how often do you get to New York?
I had a friend who lived in the Upper East Side for a while, so I would usually go visit her, usually once a year. On the few times I was back on the East Coast, so it's funny, like not a ton historically. I think having grown up so close to Boston, like there wasn't a need to travel 3 hours to go to New York City when we were younger. So I didn't go there until I was in college or as an adult, really. I do love it though. I would love to give you restaurants that like I've been to, but like, you know, I spent a lot of time on the Upper East Side, and like I just love being able to walk out onto the street, and it just feels like whichever direction I look in, there is something that looks appealing that I want to be eating, and that's such a beautiful place to live in.
There's time. I love a walkable city. I just absolutely love it. There are times New York dining can be overwhelming because there are so many options, and you don't want to fall into the trap of I just fell into nice sign, bad restaurant kind of place. But you know, for ethnic food, you can't beat it. So let's just finish with this, since you've seen Springsteen once and you're not really qualified to talk about that. What is the one band that you need to see in your lifetime that you haven't seen?
That's a fantastic question.
Band, performer.
Yeah, band or performer. I think I have to see Kendrick Lamar before whenever his next tour happens. I haven't seen him yet. I wanted to go on his most recent tour, and I didn't pull the trigger on tickets. But he's such a unbelievable rapper, unbelievable songwriter, unbelievable talent that I can't. I have to go see him at some point. So the next tour he goes on, I'm whatever the cost, whatever the inconvenience is, I'm going for it. But I need to see him, and I do want to see Bob Dylan. even though he is not, the shows are not exactly what they were 40 years ago. I feel like I would like to see him once, even if it is maybe not what I'm going to be expecting.
Well, that's interesting, Sean. I'm not sure that Kendrick would be my first choice, although I did enjoy his Super Bowl show. I've never been a big rap guy, just because I grew up in the 80s and was just more of a rock guy. And I've seen Rush a bunch of times, probably three. I'm really wondering if I want to go see him in June when they are here in Fort Worth.
What's your favorite Rush album?
My favorite Rush album, it's probably Moving Pictures.
Okay.
I love it. Subdivisions is also underrated for me. The current argument in our home, because my wife is a fan of 80s alternative music and I am a fan of 80s rock, is we're debating if the Rangers are not in the postseason in October. Gina wants to go see Modest Mouse. I would like to go see Billy Idol. That's kind of the dichotomy of our household. So we're having that argument, and then we have to figure out if we'd have enough money left over to go see Casey Musgraves, which is a must see for us. We've seen her in Billy Bob's, we've seen her at Toyota Music Factory, we've seen her at AAC, so we've seen kind of the progression of Casey. This new album is great. And she has, as far as I'm concerned, the most beautiful voice in America. So that's our real dichotomy. I'm overusing that word and misusing it, but that's our real conundrum right now. Would all be solved if the Rangers would make a nice long playoff run. Then it would be a lot cheaper for me and probably less musically inclined. But that's all we've got for today. Kevin will be back at some point in time, and this podcast will get a lot less interesting when he joins. But we'll be back with him, and I'll put up with him. I hope he has a nice time wherever it is that he is. Sean, thank you for joining us. Thanks to Tim Cowlishaw, and for everybody in here, to all of you out there, thanks, everybody. See you later.